Hi, I'm Dr. Jeanette Hughes, and I'm a professor and Canada Research Chair at the University of Ontario Institute of Technology. Over the past 2 years, we've been collaborating with the Ontario Ministry of Education and the Council of Ontario Directors of Education to conduct some research around the implementation and evaluation of makerspaces in Ontario schools. We've been working with 20 different school boards across Ontario. Some of those boards are French, some are English, some are Catholic, some are public. We have large urban schools and small rural schools involved in the study. One of the primary objectives of this research was to explore what happens when teachers are given some time and some support and some funding to establish a makerspace in their school or to use maker pedagogies in their classroom. Rather than focus on makerspaces, our attention has been on the kinds of things that happen in those learning spaces. And so we're focusing on maker pedagogies and how the use of those pedagogies help to create a maker culture in a school. As researchers, we were quite interested in the kinds of supports that teachers felt that they would need to make the kind of shift that they would need to make from a more traditional approach to teaching and learning in their classroom to one that is more inquiry-based, passion-based, student-centered, pedagogies that promote play and imagination, critical and creative thinking, collaboration. There's been a lot of attention recently on the importance of ensuring that our graduates from our education system have the requisite skills and knowledge to be able to be successful, not only at school, but also in life and in their future careers. A lot of employers are talking about the importance of the so-called soft skills, although I would argue that these kinds of transferable skills or global competencies are anything but soft. I would call these permanent skills or lifelong skills, and I think they are just as important as the subject-specific kinds of knowledge that students need. Early on in the project, we brought all of the participating teachers to our research lab at UOIT, where we did a 2-day session with them focusing on professional development related to STEAM education and maker pedagogies. During that session, the teachers engaged in hands-on activities related to things like 3D printing, programmable robots, virtual and augmented reality, circuit building, and a variety of other activities. Following that session at UOIT, we visited each of the schools on 2 separate occasions, where we interviewed the teachers and watched them work with their students in the classrooms. All of the 60 teachers that we worked with in this project identified a number of benefits of using maker pedagogies with their students. These included the kinds of transferable skills or global competencies already mentioned, things like cooperation, communication, creative and critical thinking, perseverance, risk-taking, and the ability to learn from their mistakes. They also noticed increased engagement and excitement in their classrooms. Throughout this documentary, you'll meet these teachers and you'll hear their stories. I hope you enjoy watching them on their journey.
Open it, it grabs the objects and hold it. And it also has the capability to walk. It can walk, it can run.
So this is the nozzle here. And then there are 12 holes right here at the bottom. That'll dispense the water.
All right. First of all, Marie Curie is a school within an area of town which we get students from all over. The culture is in the heart of our school. It's usually families with less money, more kids at home. I mean, it's a vicious cycle, right? And the vision that we implanted with the Maker, that we are implanting right now, because it's our first year, although we'd like to be a pioneer of the Maker, is that first of all, that culture is not a reason for not implanting and like putting stuff into our system.
But the site itself has been incredibly well received. The kids love it. It's bustling. It's booming. The innovation piece is driving kids into this space. I've never seen the amount of engagement as I have in a school, and I've been teaching for 16 years now, as I have in this space. So it's reignited my passion for what I'm doing, and it's also redirected possibly how I'm going to teach in the future, which is super exciting for me.
You know, the thing I appreciate the most about the whole Maker ideology is the level of engagement that I see. So that I think is the biggest thing for kids and for learning, is a sense of engagement that comes with it.
Yeah, when they're doing a hands-on activity, they're in it. They're in it.
Yeah.
The writing process perhaps after they're maybe not so engaged in, but the actual making of the items, love it.
The student engagement piece is significant, and the nice thing is they don't know they're learning while they're doing it. So that's the advantage that we're seeing here as well.
I think that student engagement has gone through the roof because it's kind of like the learning has been turned over to them in some cases, so that they're being able to have more opportunities for inquiry type learning. But besides the student engagement, I think that the teachers are realizing there are so many more ways that I can engage my students into what I need to teach them, and therefore it makes their job as a teacher that much easier, because buy-in is so important, and getting them interested and excited for what is happening in the classroom is so important. And I think that having a different space in the school where that can also happen besides the classrooms is good, where small groups can go work at a time during class time where they can sort of be outside of that maybe quieter area and really expand their learning that way. And the teachers that are involved in the project are really feeding off one another and asking questions and saying, hey, did you know you could do this with this item? Or, oh, let's try doing some knot tying and just see where that goes, and stuff like that. So
as they really love getting in there, and I just stop sometimes when I'm ironing multi-beads or helping somebody with something, and look, and every kid's engaged. Some kids have their tablets and they're using the Goldie blocks and following along a video and fixing it, or the we do's, two of them are working together and saying, oh, we can't do it, and then they work through it. So that type of engagement, it's that kindergarten model moving up. I think they miss that. Some of the grade 1s and 2s after kindergarten, it sort of gets pushed aside a bit more. But the engagement with the primaries is great.
Yeah, the product.
When we work in the learning space, the collaborative learning space, there are no discipline problems to worry about. The kids are almost all engaged. When we go down there and we have
we usually do centers and we have the whiteboards and we have like different activities that the kids can do. We never have any behaviors in there at all because they're all so engaged. And I find that they're more willing to help each other. So this one's really good at coding and he's like, oh, somebody else is saying, I can't get this to work. And they don't come to me. They go to each other because they know that I'm at the same level as they are. So I like that it becomes more about what can this person give to this child. And it's not always the same children. So
I had the circuit kids out and I had them in groups and I actually gave them time projects. So I said, okay, you guys have 10 minutes, everyone's gonna do project 123, whatever it was. And so that you could see them, oh my gosh, we gotta go. And I'm like, you got 4 minutes, oh my gosh. And they're working. I had no classroom management issues. And then I said to the boys after, I said, oh, I figured you out. I found something you like. They're like, yeah, since I like this, can I take one home? Can I have one?
As we went and we did all this learning, it was wonderful. We came back and then do it, right? Like I would have really liked to have some release time to be able to make those curriculum connections so that when we, and because I don't expect us to know the tech inside and out, you have to learn, there's a learning curve.
For sure.
But to be able to really have teachers understand that this isn't an addition to your program, it is an enhancement to your program, that this is a tool to get the curriculum, to your students. We have to know that. So there was time to learn that ourselves, how it connects to the curriculum, and then time to get it out there, time to share, other than just staff meetings, because you're talking an hour and 20 minutes. We have other things we have to get to as well. Time, teacher release, to sit down, here's your curriculum, this is where we know it can match your curriculum, this is how it can help you with your program, would have been beneficial. Because as opposed to just focusing on our curriculums, but I think we all came back with the hope to spread it. Like that was our, to make it, so to have that time to learn the tech, connect it to the curriculum, and share that with teachers.
A little bit of sharing issues, because a lot of times there's collaboration and working together, and two people on one Sphero with an iPad. Well, he's had it the longest. Like, when am I gonna get to? You're supposed to be working together, guys. Like, so that happens a fair amount. Getting better at it.
In the older grades too, it's just a lot of people have very opinionated, so when they are doing collaboration, for them to be able to share their ideas and, I want to try my Ozobot this way, I think we should do the map out this way, no, I think it's going to be better this way, for them to come together with an idea, that's what I found that was very challenging for them, to be able to problem solve that.
And I think that's the biggest challenge right now for us. We have the devices in the school, but we don't have the education or the pedagogy connection yet. So I think, the learning for the team when, through the requirement of the project to develop 10 lesson plans. I would say the staff sitting here says, I know the connections to the curriculum. I know how, if I was in this grade doing this, I could make this come alive for my students. I would say the challenge is that how do we bring that to our staff? But that can be facilitated even with a, inquiry model that for this term, I'm going to try 3 lessons using dash and dots as it fits my math curriculum or as it fits my science curriculum. So I think being intentional around our planning as a school as well to say, this is what I'm going to try, and then come back with that feedback loop to see what worked, what didn't, and how can I improve next time. So I think we know change of practice is what takes so long, change of behavior and getting over that, I guess that barrier of just not knowing what the devices are capable of bringing out of the curriculum. So I think making those connections would be a really good next step for us.
Once again, if you don't understand your curriculum, if you don't understand your pedagogy and what's driving the learning, then you can't get the kids on the pathway and open up a door for them to walk through and get at those things. So you really do start with a good solid, in the end, I hope the kids learn X, Y, and Z. And then you go from there. But it's not for every student. And that's one of the things that sometimes people look at the Makerspace and they look at all the robots and all the different things that you can do and make and build and create, and they think, wow, this is amazing. And there's a danger in that too, that you lose sight of the pedagogy and you lose sight of the purpose of what you're constructing or making and what you're hoping to enhance in the students. So you can go into the Makerspace and wind up not making the best benefit out of the space and the time that you're spending there if you don't really understand the skills that you're trying to develop in the students or the connections to the real world that you want them to make.
We transformed the idea of like reading buddies into STEAM buddies instead. So instead of us just doing reading activities with the grade 1s and grade 2s, the 7, 8, and the 8s are doing building activities with them. So like for the example, when we had snow, even though we still have snow today, my students, first we went out and we built toboggan hills. So like they had to discuss like what kind of triangles are we building, like what's the best type of triangle for a toboggan hill, creating that. So then we were also outside and engaging with the environment. And then with our buddies, we used cardboard and other materials to create toboggans, especially with the make-do kits, to put our stuffies down the toboggan hills. So that was a good experience. So like the older students were helping the younger students start using all of our different tools, just like our older students have taken the younger students to do coding with them on Scratch. Those different types of ideas.
With that. Yesterday they had a supply teacher. They were shown the pictures of a book and said, now write what you think the story is about based on the pictures. They all wrote pages. And I was like, really? You couldn't write 6 sentences 2 days ago, but you've got a page full. And it's interest. They weren't confined. They had their own thought. Some of the kids in grade 3, as soon as you give them a specific, they freeze. And I think it's where we were kids, we were allowed to run and use our imagination. I think they still have that desire to use it, or it's innate, and we've stifled it. And when we bring out green screens and we take that 3 steps back and go, I don't know, just do it, we are actually letting them be 8-year-olds. So the projects may not look great, but they're really what an 8-year-old project should look like. And I think that's the difference. When we allow them to do their own work, they're actually at their level, their ability, their creativity, their interest. And I think that makes a huge difference in what we're doing.
I really do believe, like, as you said, it's innate. Being a maker is innate in human nature. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of school, like if your ability to make is this large, we say, okay, but only make something this big. This is what we say you can make. And a lot of our students fall outside that small circle where they can make something. It just can't be a paragraph. It can't be a wonderful 5-paragraph essay, but they can make me a video.
Yeah.
They can make me a script. They can make me a set. They can make me something else that shows their learning, that shows their knowledge.
That's the hard part for a lot of teacher is to let go, to accept chaos, to accept the mess, but they surprise you. And I've done a lot of process how they have to think of all the steps before they go right into the action of like creating whatever they want to create, just so they think of the logic or the different material they will need, so it won't be like, okay, I'm here but I don't have the material. And I see an enormous difference because they will go on YouTube and find ideas. They will go on this site and look at a tutorial, or they'll look brighter than just like, this is what I want to do. And then when they find another idea, then they change. And I think that's the interesting factor of a maker, or the maker process, is that they think before they do it, so it's just easier, or it creates something that you didn't expect at first.
That way.
If we're talking about if there's been a shift in the culture to a maker culture, definitely I see that there's been a difference. As a learning culture, I think that was already put in place from how how we've been learning previously. But I think there's definitely a shift in understanding the importance and the impact that making and tech can have on our students' learning. I think that there has been a significant shift in that. And I'd say even more so in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
2 months. It's really, it's seemed to shift significantly.
The level of comfort for all of, I would say, the majority of the staff are using the tech has grown.
Or just trying, right? Because as more people try, take that risk, and then they talk about it, and they're like, oh, okay, we want to try it too.
And so many of us seeing it on Twitter and just seeing, the tweets come up. And
I think another purpose for having the Maker Fair is to showcase the learning. It's just like another opportunity for parents to come in and people in the community to come in and think, oh wow, okay, and just more connected for parents too, to see the purpose behind what their kids are doing here.
And from a system level too, making that very explicit to whether it's our trustees, the parents within our board, as you've mentioned, other teachers within the board, right? Having those conversations that this isn't just, a game we're playing here at the school or just toys that are fun for students to do at recess time, right? There's a lot more intentional thought behind what we're doing and how we're using it. And structuring it within the curriculum, within the classroom, and within all the global competencies that we're looking for within our students now. So having those conversations in our communities and with other school boards as well, to suggest that that's the reality, right? It's much more than just toys. It is actually a great learning experience for our students.
For me, I will be looking forward to more collaboration between myself, Mr. Blair, and Ms. Baker, regarding the resources and how we can support each other in terms of ensuring that we're competent and then taking it into the classroom. So that's what I'm looking forward to, basically.
Has been a bit more open to sharing ideas and a bit more open to trying new things. And it's really cool because we'll sit in the lunchroom and we'll talk, oh, I did this, and what I do in my classroom can be applied anywhere, really. So I think we all kind of get ideas from each other and support each other in what we're doing. And we're more open to sharing programs or whatever we can do to help.
A few other teachers when we first especially got back, and it was fresh and it was new, who got some of us from the project to actually come in and help with their students, especially with the Spheros. The Spheros were really, really popular. So using it in the math and doing perimeter and area, and so I would say probably half the school has at least some experience now with it. And then when I get myself in gear for my own principal's course, my practicum, I'm also doing a group of, there's 5 or 6 teachers who have signed up. So we're going to do just a little club after school where we're going to, myself and some of the Makerspace and some of the people from our own board tech team are going to come in and help to introduce the coding and more of the Makerspace to them so they can go and use it in their classroom.
Yeah, it's surprising how much they know, because when we were doing our Makey project and we're doing riddles, so I had to find a way to make it move on to the next, and it wasn't really working, and they were like, no, you have to do this, and I was like, oh, okay, you already know, then go for it. Yes.
But I think it's great that the kids actually are teaching us things too, so it's not just all the teacher doing the work, it's the kids are teaching us as well.
I really find that they like going down there, and their inquiry just increases so much. They're asking questions of each other, and they're looking things up, because just like I said, they know I don't have the answers, and I like that they realize that I'm learning just as much as they are. I am happy because some of the other teachers, they're like, oh, look what your kids are doing. I'd like to incorporate that into mine. So I think my excitement is kind of making it contagious to the other staff members as well. And it's the same with Renee and Paul. We're all sharing in there, and it's making it great for the whole school.
One of the really beautiful things was one of our teachers, kind of saw what was going on and then took it to her own classroom, and these kids developed this beautiful thing for patients with dementia as a part of a research project, and lots of thinking around that. So, I think that's what happens is in all these quiet corners in the school, people's eyebrows are raised and they're seeing the kids, produce things. And then also, things that we never thought.
We try and encourage kids to learn from each other.
get away from, oh, that person cheated off of me, or that they're using my ideas. It's easier to encourage that, I think, with this more innovative makerspace, that we are all on this learning curve together, and they are sharing. Example is a couple of kids in my class, one who was using the sewing machine, and she learned first, and everyone else wanted to learn, and she's become the teacher, the expert, and now it's just spread out from there.
Yeah, no, overall, like, it does just take extra imagination to how are we going ourselves programmed to use this, but then also giving the students, like, the opportunity to be like, can I use this type of technology to show my learning in this type of way? So the students being like, can I create a film instead of creating several paragraphs for you to read, and realizing, you know, that is equally valuable and shows their learning equally as their writing skill. Like, they're showing their knowledge of a concept. So in history, for example, instead of writing a timeline, you can create a heritage minutes video instead, and those are equal. But I think, like, the really big thing is, like, just feeling yourself safe to let there be less control in what the product might be, and really focusing on the process. And that's really what I think the Makerspace allows us to do, being like the process is equally valuable. I think that my assessment is richer when I focus on process instead of product. Because when we are following process, I do have to think more of, are they doing a self-reflection? Do they have a peer reflection? So they have their self-assessment, peer assessment. And then I can see their understanding, because that's one of the very large parts of assessments, are triangulation of data. Products, only a third of it. So like 33%. But too many people give that 33% too much weight. What did I see and what did I hear? Those things matter more than the end product. It's us really realizing, like, revisiting our curriculum. Because, like, learning skills is a giant aspect of learning. Like, that's helping our students grow in learning skills is one of the reasons why we're here. And so teachers know that they have to report on learning skills, and that's one of the focuses. But it's also revisiting all of our curriculum and not going just to the overall expectations and our specific expectations, but those pre-pages that are in every single grade, where it's like in math, it's the math processes. And problem solving is one of them, collaboration, communication. Those are all things that it says we need to help them grow in those skills through our overall expectations.
But it's like when we started and you wanted to use the B-bots and you were like, I'm not sure my kids can handle the B-bots. And I was like, just put it on the floor and see what happens. And you were like, but, and then you came back the next day and said, they used my phone to record it. Then one kid was recording the whole thing happening while other kids were playing with these B-bots all over the place. And you were like, I can't believe they all just did. And that was the trust factor, right? Yes, You let go and you trusted that something was going to happen. Who knew what? But it turned out that that sort of
ways to achieve perfection. It doesn't look like one thing.
I think when you look at evaluating creativity, it needs to include, are they willing to accept the fact that they're going to make mistakes? And that's okay, just as long as they're learning from those mistakes. And like both of them have said, that needs to be a part of it. They need to accept that. And for some kids, that's very difficult. That in itself is a learning stage. So that needs to be a part of the creative evaluation, right?
So
Is that they
if I give them an engaging activity that's STEAM-based, it's all hands-on, it's incorporating all strands of the curriculum, and they want to finish, there's a drive that I can't create in a regular curriculum setting. There really is. So there will be ups and downs with giving up and persevering, or going back and watching, getting frustrated, and then seeing how cool the activity is and them driving themselves back into it, or seeing how their team is starting to fail because they're missing a member and how the teammates respond to that and encourage them back into their group without my intervention at all. It just naturally is guiding them based on those competencies. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's the incredible piece of it, because the kids are so engaged in the activity, those things are naturally happening. And when they fail, being able to flip it into, we talk a lot about key innovators in history, in my classroom anyway, and just how the foundation of innovation is failure. and getting that across to the kids in any other strand, specifically teaching strand by strand, is truly impossible. But when they are building something and it doesn't work and somebody else's group works, the celebration of their success and the reevaluation and reflection of what they built, it's just supernatural. It's natural and it's instinctual and it's unlike anything I've ever seen. It really
Yeah, we had a great connection just a few weeks ago. So we were finishing up a unit in grade 2. We do growth and change in animals, and we'd been playing with the Ozbots because our new class set came in. So we now have like 23. So I was just trying to find a way to kind of teach them the new tool, but also make that curriculum connection. And then talking with a colleague, the idea that we kind of hit on was, can you pretend your Ozbot is an animal, and can you create a path that shows a day in the life of an animal? And we were trying to show what would they need. So maybe they take a pause at the water to have a drink, or how do they get food? And we were trying to build in some of that probability, because with the Ozbot, it doesn't necessarily, when you get to a fork in the road, it doesn't necessarily always follow the same path. So we were trying to play on that, or what would the response be if it saw a predator? So they were choosing specific codes that maybe there's one where you can like turn around and run away. So they were using that code at the right spot to sort of mimic the animal's behavior at that point. And then adding in some of that, probability, or does it try to get home at the end of the day, or is it collecting food? And so the kids were, drawing that right on their page. So kind of mixing in, it was really great and really rich, and the kids really enjoyed it.
A lot of, as well, like project-based activities.
An arcade.
Exactly, yeah. So more the questioning, query, questioning, and it goes back to what Joelle was saying, is let's not focus on the answer, let's focus on the process and what you learn through. Like they always say, like the journey is more interesting than when we get to the destination. So it's the getting to the destination than the destination itself that's interesting. And I think that's what we need to implement to the students, because we all know that half of the jobs that they'll occupy next in the future either don't even exist, or they'll have to invent it themselves.
A good thing too has been after all these big things, we've done journals with the kids, or anytime we go out, and so they've had a chance to kind of reflect. So even if you don't have the opportunity to see those aha moments or what they're thinking or feeling, we read it. And so with the bikes, they had said, they were really excited and they thought it would go faster, and they realized it takes a lot of patience and it's frustrating, and they had to ask for some help. And some things people said, well, did you try first? Like, you're going to have to step outside of your comfort zone, and you're just going to have to try it. See if it'll work. If it doesn't work, what's your next plan? And if that doesn't work, then ask for help. Don't just be like, I don't know, and go and, like those kinds of things. And so that's probably been my favorite, is reading those, because not always everything is you hear. And so being able to read what they're thinking has been really valuable.
So they're really talking about the design process, right?
Yeah.
The idea of figuring out what the problem is, making a plan, creating a prototype.
And then, what they would do next time. And is this a valuable project? Is this something that they would like to do again, or do they think there's something else better, or can we kind of change it a little bit, or because we're looking to learn as well from them. And so it's definitely more of a partnership. We're not the leaders. We maybe come with the ideas and kind of pitch it to them, but we're definitely more partners in our learning and working together. Obviously there's always rubrics and stuff that we're doing and we're giving back, but they agree completely with what we say. I heard you use your scientific language, I saw your design, you were able to reflect on how you might change it. Would have been nice for you to maybe try out your model and do a test run or two, or in your science fair, did you do different variables to make sure your experiment was correct and accurate? No, okay, now I understand, yes. And then they're wanting to try and fix it. Or
I think there's more freedom in the way we let kids do that now than when I remember going to home ec in this room as a kid, and it was very prescriptive.
Yeah.
You're doing this, you're making this, here's how it looks when it's done. Oh, yours almost looks like that, so you get a B. Whereas here, like Allie said, freedom, make what you want, and then we're going to find the learning. We'll see the learning, we'll find the connections afterwards. I think if we I mean, you do want to start with curriculum, but if you go, I'm going to do this lesson and it's focused on expectation 17.1, and you drive down that very narrow road, there's
You've already
so
lost
much.
so many
Yeah,
kids.
you've already
Yeah,
lost
so
you're
many
losing
kids.
those
Yep.
kids, and,
Yep.
and you're losing the learning that's happening from different angles. So.
Yeah. So it's not so much like I'm going to make a mistake, I don't want to do that. They'll test it out, work with it, kind of approach the
Yeah,
job.
like a mindset, right? Like a positive mindset around different, like especially I see in math, students had struggle, but then they're able to actually try their best.
I can give you an example. We came in from recess one day and our snow pants were getting wet and they were bothering me. I said, okay, what can we do? And they said, we can design some snow pants. Because we were doing all kinds of little things before that. And they know that, if they come up with an idea, Miss Klessel, we'll kind of run with it. So they designed and they made prototypes and they thought of logos and stuff for snow pants that don't get wet. It was great. They were really engaged in that. It was really neat. And it was meaningful to them. It wasn't my idea at all.
But a big push in education now is that inquiry, is collaboration. And I think a lot of the things I do in math, it's building resiliency in kids and able to make mistakes. And then science is like that. A couple of kids, I teach grade 6, and I've got a couple of kids in my class, for example, who are reading and writing at grade 1, 2 level, and that's probably not uncommon. I have a boy with Down syndrome in my class who's very behind academically. However, they enter at their own level, and it doesn't matter, whether it's a grade 6. We enter at our own level and we improve and we move on. And I think kids, they share more with each other, and so it's available to anybody. And I think your regular curriculum, if you look at the curriculum and I'm teaching something to kids, a lot of it is beyond kids. However, beyond kids' abilities for some kids, but when we're doing more of the exploratory inquiry based, it's open. It's open to, if one person wants to take it to this level and one wants to take it to this level, that's fine. So it's sort of an open, it's much more open.
I think what's really refreshing too is that although these are new tools and examples of innovation, it's not new pedagogy. We've always believed that students learn best when they create. Students learn best when they collaborate. And these are tools that can really make that happen. And one of the things I've heard a lot of the teachers talk about is that there isn't this pressure where we need to be experts.
So the students are building a trebuchet as part of the Mechanical Advantage, Mechanical Efficiency Systems unit that we've just finished. So they've had to determine what their mechanical advantage of the trebuchet will be, and then next week we'll see how far the contest is to see who can throw it the farthest within certain restrictions. But that's what they're building right now out of wood. They've come up with a design together. We focus mostly on how to be good group members, how to divide the task up, and it's worked really well. I wish I would have started at the beginning of the year because we don't have enough materials for everybody. So that's been the real goal, is how do you work together as a group to achieve the task in the required amount of time, persevering, sharing the glue, the materials, all those sorts of things. That's been the real eye-opener for me. It's made them better people because they've had to work together to achieve the task because we don't have enough stuff. And it's been a real rewarding experience to watch.
Just skill, but more of a mindset. Just the willingness to be open to take a look at something and figure out where it's going to fit within the curriculum. I've always liked to look at the curriculum first and then backwards plan for whatever sort of technology it's going to be. But some of the stuff we got, you're like, okay, I got to figure out how to make this technology fit to the curriculum, which isn't the way I'm used to planning.
I've always loved computers and I always integrated that computer part, but now with this Makerspace movement idea, it changed the way I'm thinking a little bit about how to use my computers to have the kids create more, and not necessarily just on the internet, but using the makeys or creating something out of cardboard. I didn't think about that before, but really that's an important part of innovation. And just that creative doesn't have to be on the computer. It's just thinking differently outside the box.
In my last math junior division meeting, a couple of the grade 4 or 5 classes are working on transformational geometry, and that is how you program in the embroidery machine. You're working on the grid, you're working with slides, flips, turns, you're working on scaling, rotating, all of those things that we do on a piece of grid paper, incredibly boring with the squares and triangles. When you do it on the embroidery machine, become a lot of fun. And the students wind up creating things like this, where they've had to scale, they've added things, they've had to resize, they've put in different items, and then these had to be set up on the two halves of the coordinate grid so that they could be printed out together.
I was thinking about Donna Fry, who's a ministry education officer. She wrote an article that was in the OPC magazine in the fall, and it talked about the projection of how many coding and technology-based jobs in Ontario that will go unfilled by Ontario graduates, and that we will have to outsource those jobs to people from other countries. And just saying, you know, in Ontario, what are we doing in our school system to make sure that our graduates can fill these jobs in the future? And I think that it doesn't start by creating, you know, programs in secondary and university. I really do believe it starts here in grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and exposing them to these kinds of technologies and allowing them to realize that that this innovation might be a future career for them, and that these skills they're developing now might be the difference maker tomorrow. So I really do believe that there's a moral imperative to introduce these technologies to students and to make sure that we're competitive as a province with the graduates that we're producing.
I know for the arcade project that we did, like I fit in science, we fit in math, we fit in art because they had to make a poster for their game. So it was really easy to tie a bunch of things together. And I really enjoyed it because it's part of forces and structures in science, and usually kids make a bridge and you see that all the time, and it's kind of repetitive. So it was nice to have something different that they could still learn about external forces, internal forces, stability, durability in a different way, and so that was kind of nice, and it fits nicely into the curriculum. Like we touched on everything that they had to learn in one project.
I had a few students who were pretty quiet in the beginning of the year, and then given the opportunity to, for example, make like a clothing line. She's now like directing models and generating her own clothing line, her own shirts and her own dresses and stuff. So she's kind of come out of her shell, and the student you were talking about actually got the chance to cook in a local kitchen, and now he's applying for a cooking job this summer, which is really exciting too. Yeah, so for me, and then I also have a few other students who struggle with seat work and textbooks and sitting down. So given the chance to build a home gym, always focused and sort of on task, and still makes some mistakes every now and then, but is really engaged every day. Can we work on it again? Can we work on it again? So for me, it's been huge this year.
So I do a lot more of the anecdotal as they're designing, and have them, you know, talk about what they're doing rather than doing a formal written piece. A lot of what I'm looking at the assessment, not only within the science curriculum, but also there's huge amounts of what they're doing preparing for the Maker Fair that ties into your oral and visual communication, which is often the English strand that's very hard to do. Teachers find media literacy difficult to do, but it's very hard to find real-world opportunities to do significant oral and visual.
What we're kind of exposing the kids to is that and we tell the staff all the time, is that they're going to probably become an expert faster than we will. Yeah. So it's really about empowering those students. So it's been really interesting to see students that were in my class 2 years ago or last year that are now in other classes kind of spreading the knowledge. Like I have we worked with Scratch Junior a lot last year, and we've done all sorts of stuff around retells and stories and all sorts of things kind of on the literacy focus. And one of my students became just obsessed with it. And he came back into school, he had his own iPad, and he showed us how to make a video game, and he had all these incredibly, like, really complex things that we hadn't talked about in class. So, like, you can move a character with, like, a joypad, and if they touch the wall, they go back to the beginning, and all these sort of if-thens, and he made a Super Mario game, and he ended up teaching like 4 other classes, and we then had like an arcade day where a whole bunch of classes and kids came, and we had all the iPads out and kids played different arcade games. And that was student driven, that wasn't me. That was him on his own learning something, bring it back, being the teacher, going to the class next door, teaching them, my class being mentors to them, so pairing up with them, helping them troubleshoot and work through challenges.
I have a
right?
similar experience with a student. So one of our planning time teachers actually takes my students to the Makerspace once a week. I take them as well, but she takes them. And so she really noticed that one of my students, again, he was somebody that not very confident, really quiet, but that he was really strong, like with the dash and dots. And so she came and asked me if I thought he might want to come up and help teach another class. And he's a senior kindergarten student, and he was really hesitant to go. So I sent him with another student that could kind of help facilitate the learning. And he's so much more confident now, like in that area. And it was just it was just a really nice moment for him as well, to build that confidence and just to have a little leadership opportunity. So
now that they're modified in math, they're modified in language, and they're, I don't want to say typical, but they are better with their hands. So they have been much better, 2 of the boys in particular, they've been much better at, and it helps their self-esteem. So, and you can start to see that they can solve problems without getting frustrated. So when I had one of the students and we were taking apart, we were making it, making this dummy, and we had to take it apart again. He had no problem taking it apart, whereas the child that is probably one of the highest academic kids in my class was like, this is a waste of time. Like, why am I doing this? And he'd be like, no, just relax. We get it all put back together again. It's going to be really easy to put it back together again because we built it the first time.
I would say there's a significant proportion of ESL students, and there's a significant proportion of socially vulnerable. Is the best way I can say that, right? Yeah. Socially vulnerable students that come on a regular basis, and this is their safe, like almost their safe place.
They're successful and
they're successful.
But it's not just a place for them to hide, or I don't want to go out at recess because that's not necessarily a good place for me. They're here partly because of that, but I think more because this is amazing. Look at all the stuff we can do here.
And they can be leaders.
And they're leaders
when they're in here because they know what they're doing and how to use the things. So they're kids that other kids don't normally go to for support, but in here they can. So they feel successful. And I know in my classroom, I have a large percentage of ESL students, and it's hard to get everybody engaged in what we're doing. Often we're doing a lot of different things, but when I bring the tech in, everybody is engaged and everybody is doing it. I know I had a custodian that came, he was a supply custodian, he walked by the classroom and we were using the Ozobots, and he just stood at the door like this with his mouth open. And then after he talked to me and he said, wow, they were all like so focused on what they were doing. That's amazing. So it was nice to see that and to see somebody else walk by and recognize that and see that everybody was, because that doesn't always happen in the classroom. So
in the grade 8,
in my classroom particularly, I have a higher special needs population in my room, and they've really, it's really been great for them. I noticed anything that they're interested in, we go with it and they create it, we research, we build it, that sort of thing. I have a couple of kids really into mechanics, like building and the coding and that sort of thing. So that's been a big plus with that group of kids.
We've also noticed, though, because we thought tech was all the way to go, but we've noticed that we're reaching about half to 3/4 of our students. Not all students are interested in the tech piece. So, I mean, look, we have our hands on in the grade 8 room with the construction pieces. So how do we bring more of that, but still, for me as administrator, still follow policy?
I find with these kinds of activities, you have the hands-on, and you go with those kids who are not always academic, let's say, and you don't always get to see that academically, but with this kind of activity, they shine.
And then I have a group of quieter students who are really into gaming, so they've been using Raspberry Pi to develop a game. And it's going really well, and they're around a circle table, and I don't even know what they're saying. It's like a different language sometimes, but they're really into it, and they're supporting each other, and it's fantastic. I have a few students who looked into photo editing, making documentaries.
Green
I really
screen
could go on
stuff.
forever here.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many cool projects, and I find on a Monday they arrive and they say like, I was thinking about my project, I think I might try this. And then they tackle it from a whole new vantage point, and it's really cool.
That they're learning 3 languages when they come here. Like, you guys know how to speak English and French, and now you're gonna code. Like, that's a different language, coding for you guys. So they'll use that, but I'm on coding today, you know. So it's been, and sometimes they don't even realize the task they're doing. They're so into the technology and programming it that, you know, the transfer is going very well.
One sort of a sidebar is what my young boy who has Down syndrome loved the spheros, and he can manipulate it very well. And even they were doing some music to it, having it move to a piece of music. So it's really neat to see a child who's academically not at the grade 6 level, however, was able to quickly adapt this and enjoy it and be able to manipulate it.
And with kids that you don't maybe expect, like some of my special ed kids are just eating this up. They love it. They're having success. They're proud of themselves. We had a little tower competition in our classroom, and it was some of my spec ed kids that were the most successful, that just used their logic to figure things out and were succeeded. So that it was great to see. It was great to see. Much to some of the other kids who thought, you know, there's always those kids in your class that are the superstars and stuff. But so yeah, they didn't see it that way. But it was great for those kids that might not always be as strong in some of the other areas of academics.
Is just awesome. When we think about new learning partnerships that may not have existed in traditional classrooms, you know, in the grade 8 room, working with Sherry, she was sharing with me how, you know, a student with a learning disability is able to show his peers how to use complex virtual reality software and apps, and how to develop his own virtual reality, and that this is a child who can give a really great presentation and dive into some complex themes in a book. And if that child just used paper and pencil, 2 things. Number 1, we may not get that level of thinking out of the child, and number 2, he wouldn't be in a position where he's an expert in front of his peers. And so all of a sudden now there's these multiple themes showing the impact it has.
I think it's a good entry point too, because I have I teach grade 4, but I have a new student this year coming from Fisher Bay, I think it is, up in Northern Reserve, who he only went to school in kindergarten, so this is his first year, really coming to school, and we were using VBots to help him read. Like, there's some stuff on here I wanted to show you after, but it's a good entry point for him, and he's engaged and he wants to do it. It's not like, this is hard, I don't want to do it, because it is hard for him. It's hard for him to read and write, so it's a good entry point, I think.
And one of our team get-togethers was letting, the idea of trying to showcase more of it out into the community so that so that it's known and it's seen, what we're doing, so that, because we've attended a lot of different workshops, the 4 of us, about how this is the way of the future, the kids learning, this is kind of the way, and just preparing parents for that, and then showing them what kind of career opportunities may exist in that many years, and by doing what we're doing, we're kind of preparing them for that.
My next step is to try and look at the activities that we're currently doing, and then using the ministry document with the 21st century, the C's, is try to make sure we are incorporating as many opportunities to be learning those C's and to be guiding our students in that direction, where they're having all those opportunities to be creative, to collaborate, to be questioning and problem solving and goal setting and doing all of those things that are really helpful, and more of those lifelong skills that we hope will make them super employable when they're done high school.
We're I wouldn't say we're struggling with it, but we're having lots of conversations as to where are we going to go. Where are we going to broaden out? What aspect can we broaden out a little bit more on? Where are we going to, or how are we going to get the rest? So we do have some teachers that maybe haven't has as much experience with it, so how are we going to get them more involved and those students more involved? And so I guess maybe we've kind of talked about how we're going to, instead of grabbing the attention of the teacher, grabbing the attention of the students and sending them back and that excitement, and then broadening out that way, I guess is one. Again, if we can grab the students' attention, then that goes a long way, I think. So,
and I think it's been very positive overall. But as far as like the full out creating, I think now that we know the technology enough, now we can take it to that next level of using our own ideas. So I think that's our next step as a school.
Okay.